What if one day your favorite grocery item just wasn't there? The empty shelves where canned soup used to be. $9 on the tag where eggs were $2 last year. This isn't fiction. It's already happening right now, across America. From the coffee you brew each morning to the canned food you store for emergencies. Everyday staples that once felt safe, simple, and affordable are slipping quietly out of reach. They are becoming luxuries thanks to inflation, broken supply chains, and policies that seem to forget working class lives altogether. This video isn't here to scare you. It's here to prepare you. We're going to walk through 15 essential grocery items, ones you probably count on every week, that are now at risk of disappearing from your shopping cart. Let's begin before something else you love vanishes. This is the downturn report. Where the truth gets personal. 1. Canned foods. It used to be simple. A few cans in the cupboard meant security. Cream of mushroom for casserole nights. Tuna for quick sandwiches. Chili beans for cold Sundays. In Texas, families would stock up ahead of hurricane season. In rural Ohio, retirees stretched every can into 2 meals. But now the shelves aren't just lighter, they're nearly bare. Aluminum prices have surged over 40% since 2020. Labor shortages in canning factories mean slower production. And ingredients like beans
Born
and
into
tomatoes
eternal
have become
darkness,
harder to
Stevie
source,
Wonder became
especially
one of the
with extreme
brightest
weather
icons
hammering
of
farm
modern
yields
music.
across the
He
South.
didn't just play
A
music, he
67-year-old
lived in
grandma
it,
from
breathed through
Alabama said
melodies,
that canned
and
goods were her lifeline. I don't drive anymore, so if I can't get something shelf-stable nearby, I go without, she says, her pantry. Once filled with backups for any storm or tight month, now echoes with emptiness. The impact isn't just hunger, it's fear. Fear that there won't be a next meal if the car breaks down. Fear that food aid won't arrive on time. When basic supplies disappear, daily life becomes a guessing game. Some suggest switching to dry goods lentils. Rice. Dehydrated soup mixes. But they require time, water, and energy. For someone on a fixed income or living alone, a pop-top can is always the most convenient option and nearly cannot be replaced. And if that life support disappears, then what's left? Have you had to skip buying canned goods lately? How are people in your community coping without them? Drop a comment. Your story might be someone else's lifeline.
used each note to paint a world
2.
he had never
Rice.
seen with his eyes.
In some
From
neighborhoods
a blind
today,
child clutching
a bag of rice now
harmonica
costs
in a
more than a
small
gallon
house.
of gas. Let that sink in. The one food you could always count on cheap: filling. Universal is quietly becoming a luxury. And while billionaires debate stock buybacks on television, everyday Americans are debating whether to buy rice or pay the electric bill. Rice has never been glamorous, but it was always dependable. A pot of rice could stretch a small amount of meat, calm a hungry child, or serve as the base of comfort food passed down through generations. For Asian American and Latinx communities, for large families and struggling single parents. It wasn't just food, it was tradition and survival. But in 2025, tradition is being priced off the shelves. The USDA reports rice prices have jumped up to 30% in just 1 year. Droughts in Asia, export bans from India, and rising fuel costs have choked supply lines. A 10-pound bag that once sold for $2.89 now flirts with $5, and that's when it's even available. A mother in her 30s living in rural Arkansas shared that she no longer buys the big bags. I just get the smallest one now. And even that I have to stretch through the week. It's not just rice she's losing, it's peace of mind. It's the comfort of knowing dinner was at least something. There are alternatives. Sure, pasta,
in Detroit,
oats,
to a legend
potatoes,
with 25 Grammy
but they don't
Awards,
fit every
hundreds
culture,
of millions of records
every
sold,
dish,
multi
every digestive system. Rice wasn't just chosen, it was needed. And as that simple bag disappears from shelves in low-income towns while high-end stores in wealthy zip codes remain stocked, it's hard not to feel like the system is sending a message. Comfort is no longer for everyone. Some losses you don't feel in headlines. You feel them in your kitchen. 3. Flour. It sounds unthinkable, flour, the most basic kitchen staple, now priced like a premium item. But walk into your local store, and reality sets in, shelves thinned out, store brand options gone, and that familiar 5-pound bag creeping past $5. In just the last year, wheat flour prices have risen nearly 25%. The culprits: droughts in the Midwest, flooded harvests in Europe, fertilizer and diesel prices squeezing farmers until they quit. But this isn't just about economics. For millions of older Americans, flour meant more than food. It's always the way to show love for their family members. Homemade biscuits on Sunday, birthday cakes made from scratch, not bought from a glass display case, a warm kitchen filled with the scent of cinnamon, sugar. Now that tradition is unraveling. A grandmother in her late 60s living in Kentucky shared, "I used to bake my grandson's cake every
In
birthday."
Detroit, to a legend with
Now I buy it
25
from the
Grammy
store.
Awards,
Flour
hundreds
is
of
too
millions of
expensive,
records sold,
and so is everything
multi-
else you need to go with it. There's heartbreak in her voice, not for the cake, but for what it represented: effort, love, pride, and the damage goes deeper. Losing the ability to bake at home means losing control, over cost, over ingredients, over care. For those living paycheck to paycheck, it's one more quiet defeat. A reminder that even the act of giving through food, through warmth, is being priced out of reach. There was a time when a sack of flour could feed a family for weeks. Now, it's becoming a symbol of what ordinary people are forced to give up, while luxury bakeries and wealthy neighborhoods thrive without pause. Not every empty shelf is just about hunger. Sometimes, it's about losing the only thing that ever warms our heart, once. 4. Eggs. In some towns today, we're saying a dozen eggs now cost more than an hour of minimum wage, and in others, they've simply vanished from the shelves. Let that settle for a moment. The humble egg, once the simplest way to feed a family, has turned into a quiet luxury. In parts of America today, families are quietly cutting eggs from their diets not by choice, but because they simply can't afford them. Imagine that, a staple as humble as eggs gone, not from shelves, but from homes. Not in a war zone, not in a failed state, but right here, in the wealthiest country on earth. Egg prices have surged by 30% to 50% over the past year, hitting states like Texas and Ohio hardest. The causes are grim, relentless avian flu outbreaks, soaring feed prices, and fuel costs choking distribution. This is not just about protein. It's about how quietly poverty slips in, changing what breakfast looks like, stripping away small joys, like a soft-boiled egg on toast or fresh banana bread on Sundays. Eggs were about
$1
rhythm,
mansions,
warmth,
luxurious
and care.
cars,
They made a house
and a
feel
private
like a
life
home.
filled with
Now that
emotional
rhythm is
highs
broken,
and lows,
and if something
his
as
life
ordinary
is a
and
thrill.
universal as eggs can vanish so easily from everyday life, what else are we about to lose without even realizing it? 5. Toilet paper. In a country that put a man on the moon, how did we end up rationing toilet paper? Not because of panic buying, like in the early days of the pandemic, but because of something far quieter and more alarming, a slow-motion squeeze that's hitting the poorest households first. Since 2024, pulp prices have soared, trucker shortages have worsened, and paper mills are scaling back on cheaper products. What's replaced them? Ultra-soft rolls and shiny packaging, more expensive, fewer sheets. It's shrinkflation at its cruelest pay. More, get less, and act grateful. But for millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, especially those in rural towns, trailer parks, or subsidized housing, this isn't about preference. It's about necessity, choosing between basic hygiene and baby formula, between toilet paper and bus fare to work. These are choices no one should have to make in a country that prides itself on prosperity. When people start counting squares to make ends meet, it's not just a personal burden, it's a national warning sign that the social safety net is full of holes, that even the most basic dignity now comes with a price tag. And let's be honest, no one in gated communities is worried about their next roll. But the working poor, they're reminded of their place every time they walk into a store and see value packs out of reach. We've built a culture of excess, but can't guarantee the bare minimum. So the question isn't just what happened to toilet paper, but what happened to
complete
fairness.
and deeply inspiring
6.
symphony.
Coffee.
Just how miraculous
Imagine waking up
is Stevie
one morning
Wonder's
and realizing
life.
you can
What
no
enabled
longer
him to
afford your
transform
first cup of coffee, not because you forgot to buy it, but because the price quietly crept beyond your budget. In 2025, that's not a rare story. It's a morning routine unraveling across working-class America. Coffee was never about luxury. It was about ritual, a lifeline between sleep and shift. For nurses clocking out at sunrise, for retirees greeting another quiet day, for truckers starting a long-haul coffee marked the beginning, a moment of calm before the storm. But that moment is slipping away. Since 2022, the price of Arabica beans has jumped nearly 40%, driven by brutal droughts in Brazil and Colombia. In the US, a basic 12-ounce bag that once cost under $5 now exceeds $8. Budget brands have vanished. Bulk deals are rare. And what's left on the shelves are high-end blends with names that don't feel like home. For many, it's no longer a daily habit, it's a quiet sacrifice, a skipped pleasure, a symbol of how even the smallest comforts are being stripped from those who need them most. One woman working early shifts said it best. Coffee used to be how I told myself I'd be okay. Now I walk past it in the store and just keep going. If even coffee, the daily anchor, is out of reach for America's hardest workers, what does that say about where we're heading? Because when a society begins to lose its rituals, it doesn't just lose routine. It begins to lose itself. 7. Baby formula. In a country that claims to cherish children, how is it that feeding a baby has become a daily crisis? Nothing is worth more than the peace of a child growing up. But since the 2022 baby formula shortage, poor mothers are holding their newborns in their arms day by day, hearts tightening with fear that their babies might go to sleep hungry. The headlines faded, but the shelves never fully restocked. Supply chain fragility, strict FDA regulations,
behind that dazzling spotlight
and
are there
limited production
hidden corners
capacity
that
have
have
created
never
a
been
slow-burning
revealed.
emergency
Let's seek
one
the answers
that continues to punish the most vulnerable newborns and the parents trying desperately to care for them. For single mothers with minimum wage jobs, for immigrant families without nearby relatives, for working parents who don't breastfeed due to medical reasons, this is a quiet war for survival, fought one can at a time. In many rural towns and low-income neighborhoods, formula is either out of stock or locked behind glass, treated like a luxury good when it is available. Prices exceed $30 per can, a cost many must shoulder multiple times a week. That's not just a budget strain, it's a humanitarian breakdown. 8. Pet food. Imagine growing old in silence, your children long gone, your spouse passed, and the only footsteps echoing in your home belong to 4 paws. For millions of elderly Americans, pets aren't just companions, they are family, therapy, and the reason to keep living wrapped into one soft, loyal presence. But now, even that fragile bond is being threatened by rising prices. Pet food costs have surged 25 to 30% in just 2 years, driven by rising prices for meat, grains,
right now,
and
the journey
packaging.
from darkness to light.
Affordable brands have
Stevie
vanished
Wonder's
from
story
shelves
begins like
in
a
many
sad
rural
melody.
and low-income areas. Store shelves are either empty or filled only with premium options far out of reach for those living on fixed incomes. For seniors, this isn't just about budgeting, it's about heartbreak. One elderly man in his 70s, living alone in a quiet Midwest town, recently made a decision no one should ever face. He had 5 dogs, rescues, companions, his only source of daily joy and connection. But with his small pension stretched to the limit, he had to choose. The food was too expensive, the vet bills too unpredictable. In tears, he gave away 4 of them. Now, each morning, he looks at the empty spots where their beds once lay, and every meal he shares with the last remaining dog feels like a silent apology. This is not just about pet food. This is about a nation quietly forcing its elders to choose between loneliness and survival. And what happens to a country when even unconditional love becomes too expensive to keep? 9. Olive oil. What if your doctor told you the key to protecting your heart was something you could no longer afford in 2025? That's the quiet crisis facing millions of Americans. Olive oil, once a symbol of health-conscious living, is rapidly becoming a luxury item, not because people are indulging more, but because the world's olive harvest is collapsing.
Yet from those
Spain
very
and
somber
Italy,
notes, he created a radiant
which produce the
symphony that has
majority of
lasted.
global olive oil, have suffered historic droughts, slashing output by 60 to 70%. As a result, prices have surged over 50%, with extra virgin olive oil in some U.S. stores doubling in price. A bottle that once cost $8 now sells for $16 or more, too much for retirees, low-income families, and anyone trying to eat healthy on a budget. For people managing heart disease, diabetes, or high blood pressure, olive oil wasn't just a pantry item, it was a lifeline. Now, Many are being forced to switch to cheaper alternatives, heavily processed vegetable oils, or even lard. The consequences won't show up right away, but they will show up in the blood tests, in the hospital bills, in the slow unraveling of long-fought health routines. And here lies the bitter truth: the healthiest choices are no longer the most accessible. They're reserved for those who can pay the premium, while the rest are left to risk their health just to keep food on the table. We often say health is wealth. But what happens when wealth becomes the only way to stay healthy in the richest country in the world? Growing old shouldn't mean giving up on living well. And yet, for too many, that's exactly what's happening, one unaffordable bottle at a time. 10. Cocoa. What happens when even the sweet things in life begin to disappear? In 2025, cocoa, a humble ingredient found in everything from holiday cookies to breakfast cereal, has become an unlikely symbol of inequality. Global cocoa prices have surged over 130%,
Stephen Hardaway
the
Judkins,
highest
later
in
changed to
decades.
Stephen
The
Hardaway
reason
Morris.
catastrophic crop failures in Côte d'Ivoire and Ghana, which together supply more than 60% of the world's cocoa, brought on by climate extremes and poor infrastructure. This price shock isn't just hitting luxury brands, it's hitting home. Chocolate milk has crept up in price. Baking chocolate is scarce. That box of cookies you used to buy for the holidays, smaller, costlier, or simply not an option anymore. For countless families who've made chocolate part of their traditions, especially during winter holidays, this change isn't about money. It's about losing a little bit of joy, one bar at a time. This year, many grandparents won't be baking their classic cocoa cookies, because the cocoa alone now costs more than the rest of the ingredients combined. In wealthier neighborhoods, rows of organic, or fair trade chocolate bars still shine on polished shelves, wrapped like gifts. But across working class towns, sweetness is fading from the holidays, when even comfort becomes unaffordable. A nation loses more than a treat, it loses connection. We once believed that happiness was found in the little things everyone could share. But now, even the little things are being priced for
Was
the
born
few.
on May 13,
11 imported
1950,
spices
in the city
in a
of
quiet
Saginaw,
apartment
Michigan.
kitchen on the edge of Phoenix. The air used to come alive every Sunday. The smell of cumin toasting in the pan, chili powder dancing with garlic. It wasn't just food, it was memory, heritage. A mother teaching her children who they are through the rhythm of her cooking. Now, that kitchen is quieter. Imported spices, once tucked affordably into every home cook's cabinet, have become another casualty of rising global costs. Black pepper from India, cinnamon from Sri Lanka, ginger from Vietnam, all climbing in price due to supply chain bottlenecks, increased import taxes, and labor shortages abroad. In some stores, prices for staple spices have doubled within 2 years. Others have disappeared entirely from shelves in working-class neighborhoods for immigrant families across America. This isn't just inflation, it's erasure. A woman in her 40s, originally from Mexico, shared that she can no longer afford chili powder or cumin to make the dishes her mother once did. The flavor's gone, she says. And when the flavor goes, so does the connection. Food is more than survival. It's language, memory, identity, and spices are the bridge. So what happens when that bridge starts to crumble? When everyday families must cook with less, not because they want to, but because they're priced out of their own history. In today's America, even remembering where you come from has become something you have to budget for. 12. Potato chips. It's the sound you don't hear anymore, the satisfying rustle of a full bag of chips, that familiar comfort, that small end-of-day reward after a long shift or chaotic school drop-off is fading into frustration. In 2025, potato chips aren't what they used to be. Idaho's potato harvests have suffered under erratic weather. The cost of cooking oil has soared, and even packaging materials have doubled in price. The result, smaller bags, fewer chips, higher prices. One bag, once shared by the whole family, now barely covers a child's snack break. Consumers are noticing. "I paid $4 for a bag that was 80% air," one father muttered while scanning his receipt. It's not just about junk food, it's about the principle, the quiet insult of being sold less for more by companies making record profits. For millions of low to middle income families, chips weren't just a snack, they were a tiny indulgence, a moment of ease at the end of a hard day. Now, even that moment feels rationed, shrinking in size, but growing in cost. In a country where billion-dollar food corporations boast about quarterly gains, what does it mean when the working class can no longer afford a full bag of chips? Maybe the real loss isn't the snack itself, but the dignity of once feeling like you could enjoy something small without counting the cost. 13. Affordable frozen seafood.
And as a consequence,
there was
he
a time
developed a
when frozen
condition
seafood
known as
was the perfect
retinopathy
solution
of
for working
prematurity.
families far from
Immediately
the
after
coasts.
birth,
A bag of frozen basa fillets, some breaded shrimp, affordable, quick to cook, packed with protein. It wasn't fancy, but it was enough. That time is disappearing. The cold chain, the logistics network that keeps frozen goods viable, is cracking. Import tariffs from Asia have surged. Energy costs for freezing and transporting seafood have exploded. The result, prices for frozen fish and shrimp have risen over 35% in just 2 years. Many affordable brands are vanishing from grocery stores, especially in inland states like Missouri, Kentucky, and West Virginia for night shift workers. Seniors living alone, or parents juggling 2 jobs. Frozen seafood wasn't a luxury. It was survival. When fresh fish is too expensive and red meat raises health risks, frozen seafood was the middle ground. Now, that ground is giving way. As low-income households count shrimp by the handful, upscale urban restaurants serve organic Chilean prawns for the price of an entire day's wage. The divide between food for the rich and food for the rest has never been clearer. When a working person can no longer afford a healthy, frozen piece of fish, what message is this country sending about who deserves nourishment and
He was
who
placed
doesn't?
in an incubator with
14.
a high oxygen level
Almonds.
to save his life.
Almonds
but the
used to
very
be a
thing
symbol
that
of
saved
mindful
him
living.
also took
a
away the
small
light
handful
from his
in
eyes.
a lunchbox, a sprinkle on morning oats, a healthy snack that didn't need refrigeration, didn't spike blood sugar, and carried a touch of dignity for people trying to live better, especially those managing heart issues or diabetes. But in 2025, almonds are quietly disappearing from the shelves of everyday households. California, which produces over 80% of the world's almonds, has been suffering from unprecedented droughts. Water is expensive, land is exhausted, and almond trees are thirsty. As a result, prices have surged nearly 30%, and producers are passing the cost to consumers. What was once a modest health habit has become a luxury line item in the grocery budget. In working-class neighborhoods, almonds are being replaced with cheaper, processed snacks, salty crackers, sugary cereal bars, or fried chips. They fill the stomach, but erode the long-term well-being. A mother of 2 in Nevada put it plainly. I used to pack almonds in my kids' lunches. Now I buy the 2 for $1 cookies at the gas station. They're not the same, but at least they're something. The deeper tragedy is not just about nutrition, it's about separation. Health itself is being stratified. While wealthier families snack on raw, organic almonds flown in from Spain, others are left choosing between staying full and staying well. When nutrition becomes a matter of privilege, illness follows silently behind. And in a country that once promised equal opportunity, it's hard not to wonder what kind of opportunity is left, when even the healthiest choices have a price tag only some can afford. 15. Tropical fruit. There's something deeply human about craving fruit on a hot summer day. A slice of chilled mango, a few rings of fresh pineapple, a banana before work. These were never indulgences, they were part of life's quiet rhythms. A little sweetness to balance the daily grind. Now, even that sweetness is fading. Tropical fruits like mangoes, pineapples, and bananas have been battered by climate chaos across Central America and the Philippines. Unpredictable weather has slashed harvests. Meanwhile, refrigerated shipping costs have spiked dramatically for inland and lower-income communities in the U.S. These fruits are no longer affordable or available. In grocery stores from Arkansas to Iowa, tropical fruit sections sit half empty. Managers say they can't stock what people can't buy. It just sits there now. One clerk shared. People look at the price, then walk away. That shift may seem small, but it's seismic in its meaning. These fruits are symbols of joy, of care, of warmth, For many immigrant families, their faucenterie, they are threads to their heritage. For seniors living alone, they are a rare comfort in a bland routine. And yet, while fresh mango is vanishing from everyday tables, upscale smoothie bars in coastal cities still sell $10 fruit bowls adorned with chia seeds and edible flowers. When even the taste of summer becomes class-bound, what is left for those simply trying to nourish their bodies and their spirit? We once thought sunshine could be shared, but now, even the sweetness of nature is being portioned out according to who can afford it. Some of these items may return one day, prices might ease, supply chains may mend, but others quietly, steadily are slipping away for good. And in their place, our shopping carts are starting to tell a new story, one not just about groceries, but about what it means to live with less certainty, less choice, and for many less dignity. Yet even in this moment of slow loss, there is strength in awareness, because knowledge is power, and with it, we can prepare not with panic, but with care. We can adjust, adapt, and most importantly, support each other through the changes we didn't ask for, but must now navigate. So, which of these have disappeared from your routine? Which loss hit you hardest? Share your story in the comments below. Someone else might be going through the same thing and need to know they're not alone.